Welcome to episode 118 of Beer with Strangers. I'm your host, Tony Russo, and I'm joined this week, as I'm joined each week, by
Doug Griffith. Extreme Brewing here. I'll start with my normal weather report. It's just nasty out there today. It's not, of course, not raining today like it was a couple days ago, but it's gotten cold. And I think they're saying high in the 40s today and even worse tomorrow. So
yeah, well, it's winter. It's winter for real. And also, just as a reminder, you can, if you'd like to go over to our Facebook page, you can check out the tasting today. Today's tasting, we are having
Blonde Stout. It's light color, but it's got dark taste from coffee and cocoa nibs.
Yes, you wouldn't know what color it was if you drank with your eyes closed. And when you drink with your eyes open, it's just a little bit confusing. And now, how did you guys decide you wanted to do this beer?
Actually, I didn't. That was Sean's, totally Sean's idea. He wanted to make something unusual, and he did again.
Yeah.
So,
and it's fun. You guys had it for your anniversary. It was out, I
yes.
think, and it was very popular because people like to see. You know, one of the fun things about homebrewing is like you can just see what you can do.
Right.
You know, and you can take different chances. And now, how does he keep the color out of it? He just doesn't use dark malts? Or?
Yes, doesn't use dark malts and just use the cocoa nibs. And I think next time we do it, we'd put more cocoa nibs or add some extra chocolate to it, cocoa. But the coffee is very predominant.
Yeah, the coffee, right. It tastes more coffee than, like when you say there's chocolate in it, I'm like, oh yes, I can taste the chocolate. But I wouldn't tell you that there was chocolate in it.
It's not predominant.
Because my palate's not that sophisticated. If you guys have been reading along with our blog on Short Craft Beer, we shook it up a little bit this week. There's kind of a conceit in the blog that I'm writing the story because I am. But I used to lead off with the homebrew stuff that I don't know anything about, which is why we're here with Doug every week. And so what I did was I moved the homebrew stories toward the bottom, not for any other reason, but that I can't write anything compelling about them. And so we leave them to talk about with Doug when I get here. But we're going to still start off the shows with all the homebrew stuff. And if you have any homebrew questions or concerns or comments, or you just want to say, hey, yes, I listen for real, you can go ahead and email us. You can reach us through the Extreme Brewing website, extremebewing.com or xtremebewing.com with the E or without the E. It's extremebrewing.com. And you can get me on through social media at my name backwards, OSSURYNOT. Last but not least, if you are listening and you like the show, please rate it on iTunes. Just take a second and say it's less bad than you think it is, and that'll be that'll be high praise for us. We have three reviews. We have one bad one and two good ones, I believe. I know we've got at least one good one. I'm keeping Doug from the hop. So we're gonna go ahead and get this show started. The reason that I moved the homebrew stuff to the bottom was because there was a story about hop hash that I understood, but not well enough to write about. There's a difference between knowing how to read English and knowing how to share English. Hop hash. So what is hop hash, and why should we care, and when do people use it?
It's just generally, let's talk about how it occurs.
Okay.
To the processing of the hops, some of the lupulin, which is what produces all the bitterness, lupulin glands produce the bitterness. But these little hops it's what comes from the inner core of the hop gets its residue that sticks to the processing machinery, and they have captured this stuff and packaged it. And this one's actually got an alpha acid of 29, so it's very bitter if you were to actually throw it in the boil and use it as the bittering hop. But usually use this just as aromas. But it's got a really pungent aroma to it, and the aromas they describe here are passion fruit, berry, pine, earth, citrus, and I definitely get the pine and the citrus.
Right.
I don't know about the passion fruit.
I don't know if I would know what passion fruit was if I smelled it.
But this has been open for a while, so it's losing some. It's starting to get a little cheesy, which means it's getting well past its prime. But still got a nice.
Right, but that's now, I'm going to take a smell here.
But you get the piney citrusy.
You do.
Yeah.
Now, the way that it looks like if you've ever had spices that have been in your refrigerator too long, or it starts to clump together. So it's clumped.
But I'm
a
kind of
powder.
kind of assuming that on the processing equipment, this stuff it's sticky, so
Right.
it attaches the stuff to processing equipment. They pull it off and analyze it, and then package it. And that's 29 alpha acid units, which is very high. Normally it runs somewhere about 15, 16, 17 is what you normally. This is Simcoe hop hash. So.
And now, so you would use it in the aroma web. Have you used it? When would you use it?
Just last few minutes of the boil, or when you turn the heat off, throw it in, and then that would be used. It would make sure it's all sterilized because you're putting it into the end of the boil.
Right.
And just put the lid on and let it sit. Or you could possibly even dry hop with it, but I would put it in the boil because it would help break things up too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming if you use a dry hop, and I'm not done that yet, that it would all dissolve over a couple of days and release all those great aromatics. So
now, speaking of putting it in the
boil,
in the dry hopping it.
Okay.
Because we were going to talk about the hop back, so maybe we can talk about these things together.
Yeah, sure.
Did they go with one another?
They do in a way. Although this stuff would not be used in a hop back because it's too fine. Usually in a hop back, you're going to use whole hops. And they were talking, the article that you had was talking about making a hop back.
Right. So this is it worth it section? And so it didn't seem worth it to me even a little bit. And that's why before I wanted to say it wasn't worth it, I figured I should ask you.
But have you ever had anything at Dogfish when it comes through the Randall where they pack this is the Randall equivalent of what you can do at home.
Right.
Now you can do this as part of brewing, or you can do it in the finished product. You can put your hops in here and force your finished beer out of your keg through it to pick up those great hop aromas. So you can use it either as part of putting your boiled or hot beer through this to gain some of the aromas at the end of your boiling process, or you can use it in the finished product coming out of your keg. Put your hops in here, leaf hops, and then serve it through this.
Now, well, what confused me about it is it didn't look like it would be. It looked like this is the kind of thing that you'd be better off buying than better off making yourself.
Well, it all depends how handy you are. We sell a Blickman hop rocket, which runs $125. So if you can find something that I would think stainless is probably the best, but you can do something, possibly anything that will hold heat, but stainless is the most obvious way. You may be able to fashion something out of some kind of a glass container, but then you're still dealing with hot liquids.
Yeah, and, you're asking for trouble with that.
Yeah, possibly. But it's a way to put your hops, whole hop, leaf hops in something and force your hot beer through it to get that great aromatics out of it.
All aromatics. Yeah. And now when you're
usually with an IPA, so it increases that aroma from the IPA.
We were just talking about this this blonde that you guys made, the blonde stout. So, but you could put, as with the Randall, like cocoa nibs in there to get more.
Yeah, you could put anything through there to extract the flavors out.
And,
sure.
And when you're using something like a hop hash, you want to pair that with. Would that be like identical to the hop that you used in the boil, or would it be like a counterpoint usually?
It could be same hop, could be something else. You've had the CPA that generally is Citra, pale ale, all Citra hops, but we've had one on tap right now that we finished it with the Sriracha Ace. So it's boiled with the Citra hops, but finished with dry hopping with the Sriracha Ace. So it just gives you the different aromatic.
And then it changes the character of the whole beer because of the different aromatic.
So, but it's just a way to get more enhanced hop aromas with it. And like I said, you really probably would not use the hop hash because it's too fine.
Yeah, it would get stuck. Yeah. And the Randall is something that you would just use like.
That's usually for serving the beer.
Right.
But you could do the same thing with the hop rocket. You could put 2 or 3, 4 ounces of leaf hops in there or more, and probably would do it for one event or a party or some event you're going to have, like we would have something here at our store, such as our anniversary, and force hops through it, and just use it for that time, for that day.
I know that they'll pull it out occasionally over at Third Wave on like a Friday night,
right.
And just fill it with whatever is handy. Just it's fun to play with the flavors. You know, it's fun to just kind of knock around and to see what kind of flavors you can get out of a beer.
And it's something unique. It's not something you have all the time, and it's just unique, something new, something different.
Speaking of something new and something different, I started a story this week that I'll be talking about over the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully will be out in February or March about pairing whiskey and beer. I'm doing a story to kind of try to bring back the Boilermaker, and I'll talk about it a little bit less. Mostly, what I wanted to say in connection with this is that as you're just trying different beers, try them with a little bit of whiskey. Now, don't like do a proper shot in a beer. But mix them, like have a little sip of whiskey and a little sip of beer, and see how the whiskey and the beer kind of change one another's flavors. The first time I had a Boilermaker, it was a Seagram 7 and a Budweiser, and you know, and that's one that's one killing a taste of the other. It's like mutual assured destruction of taste. But recently, I had a really high-end beer with a really high-end whiskey. And that is a taste experience that if you don't have, you should at least get out and give yourself that opportunity. One of the ones that we mixed, it's not going to be in the story, so I don't mind talking about it. Was I had the new Menagerie 10 from Evo, and when we had the Menagerie with the whiskey, it was very good. It was a little sweet, but the problem is you can't have a 12% beer and a shot of whiskey unless you're at your house. And that's what all the guys are saying. They're like, if I were in front of the fire, I would drink this all night, but I'm not in front of the fire. I'm at work.
But the drive afterwards is a problem.
Yeah, the drive after is a problem. So we found a lower alcohol beer that paired very well. And if you guys have any suggestions for beer that you already know goes good with whiskeys that you already know go good with, let me know, because I've still got another 4 beers.
You're up for more experimentation?
Oh yeah, I've already secured. They want me to do 7 or 8 beers in the article, and I've got 3 for sure. I think I have 5, but I'm missing 2. I'm missing 2 definitely. So I could use a little bit of help, preferably something on the East Coast, because I'm going to be going to these places. Preferably something between here and Philadelphia, because those are the only places I'm going between now and the new year. But it's fun, and you should do the experiment yourself and let me know what you think. And so, right now to the news and back to the stories at hand. This first one we might spend a little bit of time on because Doug and I were talking about it a little bit beforehand, and it's a really interesting article. Do you want to talk a little bit about the prohibition?
And the fact that earlier this week it was the repeal of 73 years. Yes. 70-some years.
1933.
Yeah.
It's 16. So
yeah,
there you go. 73.
Yeah. So it's amazing that we've had legal now for 73 years, but we've also gone from 80 breweries to just 5,000 authorized breweries this week.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's amazing.
One of the things,
and the bubble keeps getting bigger and bigger. It
makes you sweat a little bit. I always forget. I always want to have a prohibition party. And I never remember that it's been December 5th until I'm writing the story, until I'm writing the beer story for the weekend. I'm like, I forgot.
But it's gone up 1,000 in the last year.
Yes.
That's really amazing.
And we're going to talk about a brewer. We can talk about it now because I just wanted to mention it anyway. But there's a guy in Annapolis who's interested in opening a brew pub, and he was talking about all the different places that he's going to. He hasn't brewed beer number 1, and he's talking about opening these brew pubs in different places, and it's the kind of thing that makes you just at least a little bit nervous. You want people to make sure they're doing good jobs.
Well, it's what was the one just Chesapeake opened a year ago, about a year ago now.
Yes,
and I guess they're doing well from what I understand.
They are. I believe they're doing mostly contract. I don't know if they're brewing in. I know for a while it was this Chesapeake Brewing Company. They were in
Chrisfield.
Yeah. And for a while, they were still brewing in Crisfield and then just driving their beer to Annapolis. I haven't been in Annapolis in a year, so I haven't spoken with them in a year. So,
but the place in Crisfield, I understand, is closed and been sold to somebody else now.
Oh,
so.
well, then they're probably not brewing there. But the place they have a nice place in Annapolis, and if you're in Annapolis, it's totally worth going. It's right next to the Lowe's Hotel. It's a cool kind of tap room. I'm sorry. So bringing us back to the Prohibition story
and how creative the brewers were during that time. One of the things I was amazed, they talked about Coors and what they did during Prohibition and how much even today they've got a whole nother business in glass and ceramics. That's
like for electronics and stuff.
Well, in lab equipment. But they've got 61 locations throughout the world. I mean, it's a big $1.5 billion industry last year. So not only are they making beer, they're doing a lot in
making stuff to put it in.
Called Coors Tech. So it's a whole separate corporation, but it was started by Adelpho. Is that right? Adelpho Coors, yes.
Right.
In the late 1800s.
And it's the result of when the beer barons were making a ton of money, they just started investing in other things. And for example, Budweiser invested in refrigeration.
Yeah.
And then when Prohibition came, the bigger companies were able to kind of lean on these other, and some like Yuengling very famously made ice cream, and they just started making ice cream again.
But I was amazed that Coors had their own bottle making company back in the late 1800s. And then they started in the 1950s with experimenting with aluminum cans. They were the first one to make aluminum cans, and their idea at that time to kind of get off what they did during Prohibition, but it was one of the things they did do was they started with aluminum cans at that period, and they saw the idea of recycling the cans back into making another can. So it was a repetitive process with very little resources.
Not necessarily to have a lot of waste, and that was very popular during World War I. Was when canning really took off.
Yeah, but that was steel cans,
right?
And after World War II, they were into the aluminum cans. But Pabst made extract. You talk about ice cream that was place up Pennsylvania. Yuengling, yes. So and other places made other things, sodas.
Soda was something that people hardly ever drank before.
Soft drinks, and they also made hard sodas. I was surprised.
Yeah.
Very potent hard sodas, the way I understand.
Yeah. So everybody was doing what they could to kind of get through, but it brings you back to this idea that I always see when I talk to homebrewers is this idea of like finding creative ways to deal with problems. You're always solving mechanical or logistical problems, and so you have this big plant. You're like, all right, well, what else?
What else can we do with it?
What else can we do with it? We're not making beer. Making the near beer was a popular thing. Starting, I think, in 1932, you were able to make near beer.
And also, they slipped a couple times, and not only they didn't make near beer, they actually made beer by mistake. Gee, I wonder how that happened.
Sometimes these things happen. But the history.
And they said the Pabst extract cans told you not what to do to make beer, so they gave you instructions, in a negative way.
Right, and that was one of the. There are so many failures of Prohibition, and it's something that I looked at so much that it just bothers me all the time. But one of the things that I talk about a lot is the reason that you can't successfully ban alcohol is because it's made of all the stuff that's already. I mean, you can't get the yeast out of the air. You
it's going to happen automatically,
right? You can't,
no matter what you do.
Letting people have fruit and barley. These things are going to happen naturally. And the fact that extract was in the stores, that people were buying malt extract for malted milk, I guess, or there are other uses for malt.
Yeah.
But it was something that I think the government never really considered. It was just like this frenzy of people who were just, mainly scared of immigrants a lot, and also tired of some of the practices in the industry, particularly in the alcohol industry and in the saloon industry. I mean, that's where we get the three-tiered system that everybody's not so happy about now. Comes from trying to smash the saloon
but it's just amazed me that they stopped all alcohol production, where I would have thought, the distilled spirits is much more alcoholic than what beer and wine is, but it was all alcohol.
Well, one of the things that I came across in my research is that a lot of people didn't think they meant beer.
Oh, beer, probably beer or wine.
Right. Everybody was saying, against the demon rum, demon rum. And a lot of people really thought that they were just going to ban hard alcohol and
spirits.
And they didn't realize until it was too late that, like regular, beer, street level voters didn't realize until a little too late that, no, it meant anything with alcohol in it. But again, there were ways around it. Yeah. And the really interesting thing, if I'm sure many of you know, but if you don't, the really interesting thing about that is beer actually came out worse than alcohol after after Prohibition, because alcohol is easier to smuggle, and people had to start to invent cocktails to make the alcohol drinkable. I mean, it had booze in it, it killed brain cells, but it also tasted awful, and that was the rise of the cocktail. And so, after World War II, the cocktail was back in a big way, and you got people started drinking Manhattans and Old Fashions and these very highly sweetened alcoholic drinks that they had gotten used to because they were able to get that. I mean, you could get rye.
Right, but you had to cut it with something because you couldn't drink it straight.
Practically poison, yes. So goodbye Prohibition, and we will see you hopefully never again.
Yes.
But so that was 73 years this week. Another story, we actually talked about this monastery. I don't know if you remember talking about this monastery a couple weeks ago. There was an earthquake in Italy, and
that was the end of October. In fact, there were 2 or 3 during that time frame.
Right, it was a bad period.
It's all centered north and east of Rome, so it was not too far from the Rome area in Italy.
And so this particular monastery was muchly destroyed, but the brewery in it was saved. Yeah. Like it didn't fall over. Now we talked about this brewery a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a couple of months ago, because it was populated mainly by American monks who went there pretty much to make beer.
And these are Benedictine monks,
right? Yeah. And so the Benedictines, I actually been doing a little bit of research on them for other reasons. They do teach and preach, but mostly they work. They want to be out in the community working. And so their idea was that they would use this brewer to raise money for the town already. And so when this earthquake hit, they kind of, just started pouring more and more resources into the town. And it's kind of cool that, again, this idea of like, that's the brewery, they make beer for us to drink, and we pay for the beer that's supporting our local economy. Yeah.
But they usually make good beer too.
Yes, they make very good beer.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing. They were using, I don't recall now. What kind of beer were they making? Did you?
No, I don't remember. Yeah. I got sidetracked on that story too. I started doing some of the, like you're talking about, doing research on the Benedictine monks. I found out that Benedict himself died in 543. I mean, 1,500 years ago. So, I mean, he started these, I guess, his teachings, and it's been carried on for the last 1,500 years. So.
Yeah, and it's just, just work for the community, study, and be quiet. A lot of them have
and do your hard work.
Right. They don't have to have a vow of silence, but they don't like a lot of chatter from their other priests. From their fellow priests. And the next story we wanted to take a look at is the story about foreign investing in beer. And again, so many of these things, it's funny because now we're coming up, we've been doing it almost 2.5 years, right? I guess we're episode 118, so that's 2 years and that's 2 years and change if we did it every week. But we missed a couple weeks. And so a lot of these stories are just kind of are watching all these things happen. But we've been talking about how, for instance, Asahi was trying to invest their way into the market. And now, go ahead.
Now that we've got foreign investors seeing we have a good market, even though the Bud and some of the other big breweries are down some, but the craft beers are still progressing some, but they're slowing. Well, I think they got to slow because we've got 5,000 breweries now.
Yeah,
so.
I think it's more of a plateau. Again, I'm not terrified of a bubble. I'm not that worried at all, only because we have enough solid small breweries here that I don't think it'll affect what I drink. But
the numbers must be sufficient enough for the foreign investors to say, hey, they've got a good market and it's going to continue to grow somewhat.
Right, and so these capital investment firms are getting involved. I mean, again, I'm for these cash infusions. I'm always going to worry for other people about shelf space and how much we can tolerate. I did see a story about a new hop, but I didn't get a chance to pull it out. But there are people who do like year in review, and one of the guys predicted that this next hop was going to be the trendy hop next year, and that was another story that we had done.
So there are always new hops coming out, so it's just another hop, another year. So
have you seen anything this year or anything?
No, not specifically. No.
Like? Fair enough. This is I'm gonna just quick check on the time here because sometimes we talk and I lose track that we're in good shape. So the next story that we wanted to take a look at was UNESCO said that, I'm checking for comments. UNESCO proclaimed,
which is United Nations Economic
Cultural Office, economic something and cultural office. Anyway, so it's arts and culture, and it says what's important and why. And it said that that Belgium's beer culture was a treasure of humanity. That's like a distinction. It's not like
they finally recognized Belgium has a beer culture. And
it's just because the way the internet is, there are some people who are like, finally, and there are some people like, this is stupid, right? And as we like to say here, drink what you like and be happy.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to talk about was like the number of people who didn't know that the Belgians made beer and who needed to know. Like, it's one of those things where
it's one of the things they recognize globally then that this United Nations recognized them.
Right.
So, but
and the people who were complaining were saying, well, what about American IPAs and what about the German Rechtsbach laws or whatever? And I'm like, well, maybe next year. It's not that big a deal. I'm not going to drink more or less Belgian beer because of this distinction, but it's something I guess that they can lay claim to for national pride, and that's
right. But I think for most craft beer drinkers, they've known Belgian beers for a long time, and if you've tried the craft beers, you've probably tried most or some of the Belgian beers anyway.
Right, or at least you're at least familiar with Belgian beers. And this is where we were talking about Boston beer the other week, and I just saw the story and I thought I'd bring it up again. I don't know. Well, I'm sorry. What this says is that people don't see Boston beer as a craft beer anymore, and that's why they're having trouble. I don't know if that's 100% the case.
Well, they're big, but not not like Budweiser, but they are big.
But the beer they make is still fine. I mean,
But you got Boston beer, Sierra Nevada, and the Fat Tire, New Belgium. They're three very large craft brewers. So they still make good beer. They still make a variety of beers. So I still think they're craft brewers. So,
right. What was funny about this story is it gave me a taste for Sam Adams because I haven't had any in a while because I usually just drink what's around me. But I think that as part of this kind of leveling off, I think that Samuel Adams just had more to lose in the craft.
Yeah.
Like that's if you're going to take craft market share, you have to take it from. I mean, you can say you're taking it from Yuengling, and that's barely the case. But you do have to take it from Samuel Adams. They're the only ones who have dedicated craft beer drinkers who have had them for the last 30 years.
But they make good beer. I've had beers at many places out that has had their beers on tap, and they always have good beer.
And they
very
also
solid.
They also do have the market kind of cornered on the low alcohol lagers.
Yeah.
You know, that's something they've been doing well and good for a long time. I wonder if they're going to join the can. I wonder if we'll see them in cans before too long. I was very happy. We've said it a couple times. We'll say it again. The Dogfish 60 Minutes is in can now, and they're going to do more, right?
As far as I know, yeah. I mean, they're trying to get more cans out so that places where you're not supposed to have bottles, you can have cans, which are
beaches, boats, vacation type spots out by the pool. Yeah. And I really like beer in a can. I like bringing beer in a can to the pool. So I felt satisfied that Dogfish was getting involved in cans only because that's kind of an emerging market. And then I know for myself, it's always difficult because I like to bring cans, and there's so little that I can get in cans.
You don't have that breaking glass, and actually overall it's lighter because can weighs a whole lot less than the beer bottle, and it's easier to, if you really want to compact your trash.
Right, pack in, pack out.
Yep, you can smash that can, and it takes a whole lot less space.
Right. Well, I know that third wave was the biggest canner here for a while, and those were the cans that you could find, because before that, if I wanted to go someplace, I had to bring Dale's Pale Ale or Chubb or any of the Oscar Blues, because Oscar Blues was in cans, and
have been for quite a while.
They were early to the party, but Dogfish had adding 60 Minutes just makes me happy because now I can bring it in. I'll tell you what, if Samuel Adams puts some Samuel Adams in cans, I'll drive it. I'll drink that. I'll bring that to the occasional party. And I think we're running up against the clock. We already mentioned the Annapolis folks and the hash. I do want to mention very quickly there was a story about plastic glasses.
Yes.
We had some decent plastic glasses at the Shore Craft Beer Festival. And
the only problem I see with those is it's going to be a transportation problem. You get solo cups, which you can get a whole 100 in a stack. Those are not going to stack. You got to have them individually, which increases your transportation costs. And although it's a wonderful glass, I think that's a whole lot better than a solo cup for drinking beer.
Right.
It's going to, the shape itself promotes certain beer styles tasting better out of that cup. And I've never liked solo cup.
Yeah, no. For
plastic, even the clear ones are so-so.
Yeah.
But just, I hate going to a place and having a cup, but understand it's like the beach thing. You can't have bottles at a, where it's going to break. So it makes sense to have a decent glass that you can drink beer at places by the pool or the beach or on the boat.
Right. And the only trouble with plastic is it gets beaten up pretty well.
But they said they went through 500 cycles of testing these things. So, and they've got a Kickstarter program or some sort of Kickstarter program going on right now.
So, I mean, and good luck to them. Like I said, we tried to buy goblets for a craft beer fest because that's what I wanted. Because when they said we had to have plastic, I'm like, why don't we try to get goblets instead? Because I figure they make plastic goblets, and that's the problem. The transportation costs are, you can only fit out where you can fit 300 of those stackable pint glasses, you can fit 100 of the stamped glasses or the oddly shaped ones. So that is a concern.
But you can invest in this. I think for $168 investment, they'll give you 24. Which is four of each of the 6 designs that they've come up with. But it is a nice looking glass. Looks like a glass.
It does. It looks like a glass, and it handles like a glass. We were at the Wonder Bar in Asbury Park, and they were. I usually, when I'm at a beach bar, I check to see if they're serving beer in glasses, because if they're not, I just get a bottle, and I didn't. And I have to recover for a little bit. If I'm sitting in a bar and you put a plastic cup in front of me, for me, it's so hard. I'm like, you know what? Charge me a nickel more and buy yourself a washing machine. It bothers me. But I mean, I understand they do 1 million people a year. Like at Secrets, they do 1 million people a year. Right. They don't want to deal with it. I get it almost, but that's not how I like to drink my beer.
But this is not going to help. You still
got to watch it, and that's what I mean. I don't know which problem it's solving but I hope they do very, very well. Last but not least, maybe next year, but probably later, maybe the year after, I'd like to start doing a series where I actually cook these things. But I'm
ready. I'm ready to taste.
I'm kind of backed up now.
I got beer to pair with it.
Yeah, and that's what I would like to start at least doing a little bit. Maybe we'll do a cooking episode or something. Beer with strangers in the kitchen. But this week's recipe is a chipotle beer and corn muffin, and I can't imagine how good it is, but I'm totally willing to find out.
Yeah,
I'd like to taste
it.
Corn muffin. Yeah. So that's it. We're up against the clock. We have any classes coming up?
Not until next month. We'll have a beer class the first weekend in January. I think that's the 6th. And then the second weekend or the third weekend, we're having a wine class. So too busy this month for things with all the Christmas parties and everything else going on. The shopping and has to be done. So there's nothing this month, but we'll start off brand new next month, January, first Saturday. So come learn to brew.
And keep an eye out on surecraftbeer.com. I expect next week we'll be out with my gift guide if you want to buy something for your beer loving friends. There'll be some homebrew suggestions. There'll be some merch suggestions. I know a couple of the breweries have large format bottles that I'll be recommending. I just had the Menagerie 10, as I said earlier, and that was fantastic. So keep your eye out for that. You can find us at extremebrewing.com. With or without the E, it's extremebrewing.com. And you can find me at shortcraftbeer.com or socially at my name backwards, my first name. My name forwards is Tony Russo. My name backwards is OSSURYNOT. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of them things. And that's it. So until next week.
Drink what you like and be happy.
All right, we'll see you, folks.